Hello and welcome back to Pathworking with Archangels. So this is where we begin our exploration, our quest to meet, communicate, experience the great archangels. They are ever present in creation, in all places, all times, in your heart, in mine, in the world. Right, now you should have a diagram a bit like the one up in the corner, like that, which has a layout for the Tree of Life with all the archangels on it. And at the bottom, the foot of the Tree of Life, which is called the Kingdom, which you'll see on the other diagram, like the other diagram. Again, you should have this already printed out. So that diagram shows you the different names of the gateways, right? So the very bottom of the Tree of Life, we have Sandalphon and Oriole. Right. So those are the two archangels I'm going to be talking about today for you. And I've got my teaching notes here, just to make sure I cover everything you need to know, right? So if you see me glancing away, it's because I want to make sure I get things in the best order for you, because there's a very wide range of content that we can unpack here, and I want to make it fairly straightforward for you, fairly step by step, because I don't have any knowledge of how much you might already know. Sandalphon is the guardian of the kingdom in conjunction with, as a partnership with Oriole. And Sandalphon's remit, if you like, is planet Earth. And Oriole's remit, she governs the moon. And in astronomical terms, the moon and the earth are what they call a binary system. They move in coordination with each other. And that's how it should be with Sandalphon and Oriole, who we can see do seem to present in a slightly more masculine, Sandalphon slightly feminine presentation. The earth and the moon in holy matrimony, we could say, right? And that's what they represent. So the name Sandalphon is one of the few archangel names which is in Greek. And I've always assumed, and when I came across it immediately, I thought, oh, well, this means something like the sound of sandals. And I had just had an inner experience, meeting an archangel whose image is in the pack of cards, or that's the best that I could do to try and represent what I saw as an inner experience, which was so luminous and so bright and so overwhelming that it's really difficult to even attempt to paint it or create an image from it. But one significant thing about Sandalphon was that he was wearing sandals, and it was that clue that led me to the Tree of Life. I didn't know anything about the Tree of Life at that point. This was 1982, and I had not long before that been learning meditation techniques, and I think that's what prompted me to start having this inner life with archangels. So I experienced this archangel arriving in what I call inner television screen. Very suddenly, very unexpected, hadn't thought about angels at all. No angel books in the New Age market at that time. So I then was led nicely, kindly, by synchronicity, to a book. It was a coffee table book just called Angels, and it showed you a great wealth of pictures from different cultures of angelic beings or beings, celestial beings with wings and so forth. And on one page it had a diagram of the Tree of Life, and it talked about this diagram, and I'd never seen it before. And at the foot of this Tree of Life, it mentioned that there's an archangel called Sandalphon. And I thought, haha, my archangel has sandals. And another clue for me was the fact that the containers of light are called Sephiroth. That's the plural, Sephirah is the singular. So the Sephiroth are the word sometimes is assumed to have some connection with the word cipher or number, but it's also etymologically it's associated with the word sapphire. And so I immediately thought, well, this archangel comes to me with a blue crystal in his hand. You can see that in the image. And that was a kind of confirmer to me that this was something I could work with. I had never heard the word pathworking, but I looked at that diagram and I thought, at that immediate time, I thought, it looks like the map of the underground in London, right? So there's little bits of track, and then there's the doors open and you get off at a station. And I thought, maybe you could make journeys. And then another image came to me when I sat down to do the first journey. Another metaphor came to me that I could pretend it was a block of flats. And this might be something you'd like to try. I'm starting at the bottom of a tall building. It could be flats, offices, whatever. And the lift doors open and I meet the first archangel or two archangels. And then I say, oh, please, can you take me up to the next level? And open the doors, another archangel. And that was the method I used when I first did what I called pathworking. I discovered the name was pathworking. So here I am teaching you pathworking. And that was how I met Sandalphon. And that was how Sandalphon, in turn, took me to find the Tree of Life. And then I started to go on deliberate journeys to see if I could meet the other archangels. So that's my story about Sandalphon, and it goes back, as I say, to 1982. And it was after that that I started doing a lot more work, and it took me about 10 years before I even talked to other people about it and wrote a book about it. So, who is Sandalphon? Oh no, let me just check my notes. No, I'm going to go. I just want to say a couple more things about Sandalphon. Yes, he is sometimes referred to as Messias, which basically in Hebrew means saviour. And so therefore he is about bringing heaven to earth, making the two things connected, bringing the divine into human life. So that's a really significant part that he's playing at the bottom of the tree. So, who is Oriole? Now, anybody who knows anything about classical Kabbalah might be surprised to see an archangel there with Sandalphon, because Oriole came to me and asked me to place her there. So you may not have come across Oriole in this position if you've looked at any other maps. So Oriole's name means light of God. Or is Hebrew for light. And because we're transliterating, in this particular case, we have A-U-R-I-E-L. Sometimes you might find it O-R-I-E-L. You may find it as U-R-I-E-L. But the name is the same and the meaning is the same. Right, now Oriole as a quite a feminine figure, again might be new to you, because if you come across Oriole with a U, you may see Oriole dressed in armour. And of course the Christians in the medieval times and the Jewish people didn't try making images of archangels at all. That's outside their remit. They're not really allowed to do that kind of thing. But the medieval Christians, especially when they were making stained glass windows, they really went to town on archangels, and not just in medieval times, but in Victorian times as well, especially here in England. Lots of churches with groups of 4 stained glass windows for 4 archangels, Michael, Raphael, Gabriel, Uriel. Sometimes there are even 7 archangels. And quite often they're very masculinized and they have armor on them, or, they have swords, So the very more feminized version of angels and archangels doesn't kind of arise until, say, something like the 19th century, especially in Victorian England. And those are some of the images you may be more familiar with. But Oriole definitely presented herself to me as a guide who has associations with mothering, with tenderness, with nurturing, mother. So she carries the baby, but she has the lion. The lion indicates her strength. And if you go back and look at ancient statues of earlier mother goddesses, even going back as far as Isis, and early images of the Virgin Mary, they are quite often associated with a lion or some other creature, perhaps like a cheetah, or to indicate that there's a strength here at the same time as having the mothering, nurturing quality. And Sandalphon has a lamb with him, who of course is associated with the Messiah. And that indicates that he has that softness about him. So they both of them have strength and softness in turn, right? So here you have at the bottom of the tree, you have Auriel and Sandalphon, who, when they work in good balance, will help to keep the earthly kingdom infused, permeated with heavenly light. So the experience of living on the earth is not difficult, not challenging, not painful, if that experience of light being infused in everything, then the life on the earth would have a new quality. It would be transfigured in some way. And of course, the very famous book of Revelation speaks about Jesus coming again, but when he comes, he also has a bride. So that there's a couple that are necessary for making everything harmonious and balanced. Yes, one thing I should mention, you may have seen me mention this before in Bridge of Stars, is that although I associate Oriole with the moon, other writers, other texts do associate Gabriel with the moon. And when we come to Gabriel, I'll talk a little bit more about that, because that was I have a different take on that from my experience and also my research. Now, the classical Kabbalah doesn't have Oriole at the bottom of the tree. It may have, you may come across it, saying that's where the Shekinah resides, and the Shekinah is hidden from us. Now, again, we will talk a little bit more about that when we get to meet the Shekinah in another video further down the line. Now, let me just... So I want you to consider how Sandalphon is an earthly companion. He's a guiding and guardian angel for all humanity, and he's encouraging us to sustain and be good stewards for the earth. So if you want to work with Sandalphon, you go and join some environmentalist group, for example. But Sandalphon will call you to something when you work with that energy. And you should take it seriously, because it's usually very practical what he wants us to do. So it's not just, having a nice conversation with him. It's okay, go and do it. And then Oriole is the motherly figure that we want in our lives to sustain us, to nurture us, to comfort us, to reassure us that everything is good. So the light of the moon guides us and reassures us. And then even when the light of the moon is hidden from us because of the cycles, when the moon goes into quietness, we can trust that she's there. She's always there. She'll come back. So take your time to look at the moon cycles. That's a very good way of making contact with that sense of the moon and her love and her generosity to the human race. So when this couple are happily married, there is a good balance of yin and yang energies. And that's what's needed in the world right now, because when we look at the world at the moment, it isn't in balance. And I mean, if it was, let me say this, if it was totally in balance, everything would be in a sense of stasis. And nothing would happen, nothing creative could happen if everything was just perfectly balanced, right? So what we're hoping for is a flow in which the yin and the yang, or feminine and masculine, can relate to each other in this kind of gentle, pulsing way that I often talk about when I'm talking about Schaefer. Not that it just stops in favour of one or stops in favour of the other. So we don't want to replace what the feminists call the patriarchy with a matriarchy. No, we don't want that at all. We want a relationship between these two complementary energies, and not to see them as contrary energies. They're not competing energies. They need to be in balance. And we can start looking at that in our own lives, balancing the masculine and the feminine. And Sandalphon and Oriole can really help you with this. So generally speaking, working with the archangels will allow you to start rebalancing the energies. As we work through the tree, we will be visiting archangels on the yang pillar and archangels on the yin pillar. We will sometimes visit the central pillar to meet archangels who are holding the balance, holding the pivot where the scales are. So that's what the central pillar is for. It's to allow the shift between masculine and feminine to take place without risk. I hope that kind of makes sense to you. I'm trying to keep it very simple, but I want you to get that this is an inner process that you can engage with. You can meet archangels who sometimes seem very challenging, an archangel who might seem so beautifully compassionate you never want to leave her arms, and then she may say to you, actually, you need to go out and visit the other pillar, right? So before I make the next video, this is something I'd like you to do. Go back to your big pictures, your A4 printouts, put them out on the floor again, like I suggested at the end of the introduction, and just stand at the bottom and look at those two, Auriel and Sandalphon, next to each other. And ask yourself some questions. Can I balance these two in my life? Can I balance being a nurturing, caring, compassionate person, whether I'm male or female? Can I also balance that with being a down-to-earth, practical, more masculine kind of person? And can I feel that when I bring those two together, I can feel grounded? And that's the idea of starting at the foot of the tree. I would just initially want you to get the feeling of being grounded in that bottom of the tree, and to acknowledge and to identify for yourself personally whether there's any kind of imbalance going on. And that when you work with other archangels, you may discover ways to rebalance these qualities in your personal life. So, so do that task, put those pictures out again, then get access to the audios. Now this time there are 3 audios to listen to, and I hope you can find a space in your life at the moment to do that before you come to the next video in the day after next. The 3 videos will be Oriole on her own, Sandalphon on his own, and then there's one for them together, right? As a happy married couple. So if you can possibly find the time to do all 3 of those, follow all 3 of those guided journeys, keep notes in your journal, give feedback in the comments below, and as I've said before, when I can get windows, and especially, you know, where there are very important things, I'll either mention it in the video or I'll comment on it in myself in the comments. So we'll see how those go. It kind of depends how many questions come rushing into me, because I don't want to make the videos too long for you. On the other hand, I want to make sure that you know I'm listening to what you say and adapting and supporting you as we go along. So all these activities give you an opportunity basically to get to experience these archangels and to understand their basic qualities, because each one of them is an originator of a particular kind of energy. Arch comes from the Greek archeos, meaning origin, right? And we associate it with hierarchy, right? Hier means sacred, archy means origin. So a hierarchy means a sacred origin. And of course, if somebody's the origin of something, they have more status than somebody further down the line. That's why we tend to think of arch meaning chief, like we have archbishop in the Christian church, and he's in charge of the bishops because he's the original bishop. He's not one of the secondary ones that come further down the line. So each archangel originates a new kind of energy, and the energy is a variation on something that's way beyond the archangels, beyond all our comprehension where that energy comes from. But each archangel is transmuting the light that flows through the tree of life and giving it a new colour, a new quality. And every one of them has an essential role to play in this creative process. And I hope you're going to get that from this course. And it's my intention, and the way I'm putting it together is to support you in discovering that creativity that's within your own heavenly kingdom, so that your heavenly kingdom can bring something to birth in the earthly kingdom, and then they won't be separate anymore in that way that we feel separated. Great. I think I've done everything we need to do for today. Don't forget to listen to the videos, the audios, the 3 audios, and keep notes and submit any comments or experiences that you want to share, and also submit any questions that you've got. And I'll make a new recording for the day after tomorrow. And I'll be so pleased to see you there. Goodbye for now. Stay joyful.